Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of Hashing Out the Law. This is a special edition, Meet the CCBA. And today, my guest is the current president of the CCBA, Mr. Carey Caruso. How you doing, Carey?
Pretty good, Arash. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you are our current president. You are the leader. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, when did you start practicing law?
Well, practicing would be an accurate term. That would be, I got my ticket on May 30th of 1980. So I've been practicing coming up on 41 years.
Wow.
My dad was a lawyer, and so I came in through him, really. My dad had an interesting practice. He practiced in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, really. And when I was growing up, I grew up with lawyers and judges around me. You know, they did a lot of entertaining in the legal community. He was kind of prominent of it. He was president of the criminal courts bar in 1967. So I didn't know if you know this, but there is a bylaw in the criminal court bylaws that a Caruso has to be president once every 53 years. So
Nice.
I'm fulfilling that requirement. But so no, I grew up, and I came into his office kind of as a file clerk / law clerk / bartender, because in that era, your office had a bar in it, and I thought that was really kind of one of the requirements of being a law clerk, was the ability to pour for these poor distressed clients. He had kind of a high-end clientele.
So, I'm going to stop you for a second because I have a very important question. Does your office have a bar in it?
Well, I have half of what the old man had, and it has a little bar, but it's not utilized for that anymore. It's storage now. The era of being proud about having a bar in your office is long past. I have a kitchen where a bar was now. That's much more pragmatic. But my dad had branched out. He was a trial guy, and he was primarily criminal, but he was successful. So he branched out, and he actually had a civil, family law, and criminal parts to his practice. And back then, you could actually be this kind of general practitioner and be competent. So when I started, I was doing civil and some family and some criminal. And I would start at Stanley Mosque, and I would do appearances there. And then I'd go across the street to the criminal courts, and you could stay relatively competent. Then sometime in the mid 80s, I think, you started seeing where the level of specialty was arising, and you had to be more competent in a particular field, and you had to pick a lane. And so it came down to that I started doing stuff more and more exclusively criminal,
So, Carey, we know that your old man was a lawyer and you grew up being a lawyer, but I asked this question of everybody. When was that moment in your life where you decided that you wanted to be a lawyer, or you realized that you wanted to be a lawyer?
That's a great question for me, because I think about it myself, because it's like, does a fish know that it's in water? No, I mean, it only knows what it knows. I'm the oldest of 5 in an Italian household, right? I mean, I saw what my dad did. I would go with my dad to court. I would go to him back then, the lawyer had to go bail the client out of jail. You'd get the calls, and the lawyer would have to go. And I would go with him on some of these calls, and then he would take the client out, and they would go get something to eat and talk about what they were going to do. I saw him do his circuit through the different courthouses and stuff. And actually, the 5 kids were sometimes used as a prop to sit in the gallery when he did a closing argument. So, I mean, we were fully involved in the deal. And, I just kind of, no one forced anything with regards to an occupation. My dad used to say, you can do whatever you want to do, just be the best at what you do, and just like what you're doing. And I always kind of like thank and curse my old man at the same time, because what he did, he made it look like fun, and he made it look easy. And I think in that era, it was more fun and it was easier, because it's tough today. It is hard today. But it's just, I never had an aha moment about it. I was always my star always just kind of pointed in that direction. I mean, I was a poli-sci major in the early 70s, which was the stepping stone to law school. That you took, if you were going to do liberal arts, you did poli-sci. And then uh, I took some time off, and with the not with the in the back of my head, I knew I'd always wind up in law school, and then I just kind of knew. I just kind of always, it was just always kind of oriented that way.
You
I
didn't know,
wasn't obsessed with it.
you didn't know any better.
No, no, I wasn't forced, but you know, it's fit me good. I mean, I loved the law. I loved the job. I loved the whole universe, you know, and I love it to have a job that you can keep on doing. It's really not age discriminatory. You don't you only age out at the end, at the bitter end, you know, but you actually get better. It's one of these jobs where you actually get better as you get older.
So let me ask you this. A lot of attorneys have said this, that it was much more fun and much easier back in the day than it is now. And I haven't been practicing as long as you have. So I wouldn't, I agree with you in a sense. But my question to you is this: knowing what you know now, if you had to go back, would you still be a lawyer?
Yeah, yeah, I would. I would. I mean, it's just worked out. I My whole life is, you know, not worked out the way that I thought, the way I envisioned it, you know, but it's all worked out pretty good, you know. And I think if we got what we wanted, you know, we'd have a bunch of rusted toys, but you know, it's all worked out pretty good. And you know, would I pick a different occupation? I don't know. Would I pick a different lane? You know, this criminal law practice is a lone wolf deal, you know. I would like more. I love it when you have. That's one thing. Reason why I like ICDA cases when they're multi-defendant, because you get to hang out with other lawyers on a multi-defendant case, and there's a certain amount of collaboration. The one thing that I do miss, and I saw in my eyes, was when there was much more fraternity between and among the bench, the prosecution, and the defense. I mean, they all hung together. They all hung out together. Both they had the same worldview, and they hung out professionally and socially. You know, and now everyone's in their own tribe. That's kind of too bad.
Right. I understand what you mean. I've seen that a lot. But this interview is about you, not me. So let's go back to you. Uh, I assume what your father was practicing for a long time here. So I assume that you're also born in LA and you're a LA native. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. No, born and raised here. Boy, LA was great when it had 3 million people in it, you know, as opposed to 10 million, you know. Yeah, I was, you know, raised up near Hollywood, near Island in Wilshire, you know, had the paper route, sold papers on the corner of La Brea and Wilshire, you know, was an altar boy over at Cathedral Chapel, went to parochial schools at Cathedral Chapel and Daniel Murphy, and had what I considered, you know, what I considered to be a fairly normal, regular old childhood. Only in retrospect, I've come to find out that it wasn't that normal, because there was so much action going on at our house. You know, my dad used to bring clients home. They, you know, you're like 13 and he brings home a Miss America who's been stripped of her title because they found out she was married. You know, then you walk her to the bus stop and she gives you a peck on the cheek when your friends are walking by. You know that doesn't happen to everybody, but it seemed normal at the time.
Miss America, an ex Miss America taking the bus in LA is not normal now. Not at all.
No, no, no. But I mean, it was so, you know, there was less division. You know, it was different. I can remember my dad coming home and saying, you know, it's really a lot easier to go downtown now that they just opened that 10 freeway. You know.
Yeah, that's insane. um, it's rare that you, well, not in our field, but it's rare in everyday life that you meet people that are LA natives. When I say LA natives, I mean they've lived here longer than 20 years. Everybody just moves here recently and think they're LA native. But being an LA native, and I'm talking specifically about the court system, from the beginning when you were a clerk and you used to go with your dad to court, and then you became an attorney yourself till now, what changes have you seen in the court system, for the better or for the worse?
Well, the calcification of government service, I think, is the institutionalization of it. That is that, there in my dad's era and early in mine, the private sector was like more involved in the bench. I mean, there was a feeling that you went on the bench as like for service, as a service job. There were guys that went on the bench that took a diminution in salary and went and volunteered and put themselves on the bench because it's the right thing to do. Kind of like the way you see some of these federal guys take federal posts for the president. They walk away from their corporate and go work for the federal to be in the cabinet or something at a lesser fee. There was more. Now everything is so rigid. A private guy, even if he runs for judge, can't get elected because it's stacked for the guys in government service to preserve all their benefits. It's transfer from DA to judge, from PD to judge. There's no, everything moves. It's just the stepping stone for them. It's all in the realm of government service now. And the government service is over here, and we are over here. There's no intermingling. So when I got out of law school, and when a lot of people get out of law school, the class thinks, hey, I'm going to make my money the old fashioned way. I'm going to make $1 million, get my cases, make $1 million, PI or glorious criminal trial or whatever, entertainment law. Everyone's got the same 3 ideas. And then everyone gets out there and finds out, hey, this is work. This is harder than it looks. But the one thing you didn't do was the last house on the left was government service at the time. Now you flash forward 30, 40 years later, it's the last man standing. It's the only thing that provides these benefits that they provide, make the rest of us that have been contributing to our Social Security and trying to salt away money in some kind of weird ass IRA. I mean, we look like idiots. There's no way. I mean, my brother retires on Friday as a grade 5 for the APD's office, and he's given him 31 years of stellar service. He's entitled to anything and everything that they give him. But that thing, I mean, is glory. He looks like a genius today, but 31 years ago, who wants to do government service?
Right. Okay. Now we're here today. You've been practicing since 1980. You mentioned your dad has had some very famous clients or very prestigious clients. Let's talk about you. Have you had any, not necessarily prestigious, but have you had any clients or any cases that you would categorize as your favorite? Not just because the case itself was interesting, but it was one of those cases that stand out in your career to you. What are those cases?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, my dad practiced in a different era, and the concept of celebrity was different, and the concept of publicity was different. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid on the schoolyard, the worst taunt that I could, because I was going to these parochial schools, and there are other kids there whose dads were lawyers, and the worst taunt that could be given to me on the playground apparently was that your dad has a press agent. That's how he gets his name in the news so much. And my old man used to take such offense at that because he goes, there's no press agent here. I do this. This is me, type of stuff. And the nature of, and I think as time's gone by and the way things change, it's that the best stories you have as an attorney with a certain amount of discretion and competency are the stories you can't tell in this era. My job is, if I get anyone of note or anything smelling of high profile, my job is to advance it a day to beat the press to it. I mean, that idea, it's not about getting your mug out there anymore. But I after working with my dad, I came to the realization I really didn't want to do, these high octane thought they were thoroughbreds, highly entitled type of people, this 1% stuff, because I really I still see the law more as an avocation than a business, and I see it as a service more that I provide a service for people, plumber in a suit type of thing, than I'm some oracle that dispenses rare nuggets of wisdom to people that are smart enough to come to me. So, you know, I see it much more as a service business. And I just like, you know, a person comes to you with a problem and you try to solve the problem. They're puzzles, you know, and you try to solve the puzzle. And, you know, so often you ask the client, you know, what's the goal? And the client, you know, you're in a business where a lot of times the client doesn't know what the goal is. He doesn't know what's ahead of him, and he doesn't know the aftermath, you know, because you know, and I know that a guy could be charged with a crime, and that if you move it over here a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, his future is more assured than if he had just plowed straight in, you know, fight, fight, fight. And, you know, I love the subtleties of the things, you know. I like it when you put a case together or resolve a case together where your guy has a future, because the criminal law is so much a young man's game that, you know, that when you've got a guy sometimes, a lot of times, that 3, 4, 5 years from now, he's going to be filling out an employment application or seeking a license from a state or federal government. And how he responds to the question, you know, you can only ask in certain applications, have you ever been convicted? And fewer, yeah, you could ask, have you ever been arrested? And, you know, sometimes you have to do the thinking for that young kid as to how he's going to be able to answer that question. So I like the finesse shots myself, you know. I like those a lot.
Okay. All right. That was a good answer. Now, here's a question that I haven't asked any of the other guests on this special Meet the CCBA edition of Hashing Out the Law. And that's because none of the other guests were the presiding president. So my question to you is, as the presiding president of the CCBA, what are your goals or your visions when your term comes to end? What is it that you want to accomplish by the time you're finished being president?
Okay, well, one, get out in one piece. That's the rule number one, you know, and have the organization come out in one piece. I mean, Mark Califf was president last year, did a great job going through these rocky shoals of this COVID thing. We, you know, and in some ways I'm envious of the position he had, because it was simple. We can't do anything because we're in lockdown, right? Right now, the great thaw is on, right? The great thaw is on. We've had great success with Zoom meetings because of the convenience and our MCLE status, and we're able to grant that hour. We've had great turnout at our Zoom meetings, and we've had interesting people. Like we'll have George Gascon April 13th, if I can plug that. But you know, now I want to be able, we all want to have our installation awards dinner, and we want it live, and we want it as soon as possible, and we want as many people to attend as possible. And trying to pick that date causes me more acrimony than anything, you know, because I see things thawing now, you know. We're at red, and they talk about being in orange in 2 weeks. That takes us to 50%. If we're in orange in 2 to 3 weeks, then we're in yellow and not that far behind. So now the ground is changing, and trying to pick the right road with regards to that dinner to show that we're truly back, both as an organization and as a society, you know, that can go out in public and meet and greet. It weighs heavily on me. We've got we want membership up. We've hit, you know, triple digits now, and we're moving up, you know, with our exposure. I've set up like the listserv with the ICDA. I've set up, but haven't fully got it going yet, as a comparable listserv for the Criminal Courts Bar Association, where we can interchange information like they do with the bar. Are you anyone down at CCB? Can you cover me here? Anyone know what to do with this motion? You know, that kind of exchange of information that so many of us could use, because we're just lone wolves, you know. And if you could just use the listserv to say, you know, anyone done one of these, or what about this guy, or and kind of get that. I want to get that information flow going back and forth, like we have, like I see on that ICDA. I'm stealing it from the ICDA.
I won't tell. I have one last question for you. Everything you said about your goals as president, we heard. But my question to you now is this: if I am not a member of this CCBA, why would I want to join?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the criminal law practice in Southern California is a small club. The guys that do it, I mean, the people that do it, the men and women that do it, it's a small club, right? And you go to the same places, you see the same people, and it's a really great club to be a member of. You know, I just enjoy it. It's a fraternity, right? And we are all brothers and sisters in arms, right? And it just further solidifies your commitment and participation in this unique practice that we're lucky enough to practice here in Southern California, you know, because we get together and it's for informational purposes, but it's fraternity also, right? I mean, because I mean, more so than civil lawyers, our credibility is all we have, right? I mean, those civil guys are lying to each other all day long, you know. The only thing that protects our client, the Chinese wall between the powers of government and him, is us. And the thing that does that is that the court knows that what we say, when we say something, that it's true. We don't jeopardize our credibility at the expense of anything, because we're coming back. It's not like civil where you could screw everybody once because you're never going to see them again. We go back to the same watering holes. We've got to go back. So to be in that club and be in association with and knowledge of, because the members I see in the hallway, we have an instant rapport and I can get information. I mean, COVID is a killer because my hallway network is defunct, and that's where I get all my info, both on judges, on cases, on DAs, right? I get that stuff, and I get that stuff because I'm a member here.
Nice. Well, your hallway network is about to come back from the way things are going. Right. So I congratulate you on that. I wish you luck in the remainder of your presidency.
Oh, thank you.
And I thank you for being a guest and allowing me to interview you on hashing out the law.
Well, thanks for having me.
You have a good day, Carey.
Thank you, Arash.